grandma, Gertie, went to high school. And it was a boarding school, it was a high school, now it's a college, or a university. And she made this in 1932, and this is the first one she made.
How many sophomores in the room? One more way to That's how old would be.
So they're actually even older than me. They were made with real, that's my grandma's real hair on his head. And they're made old school style, like before all the fancy feathers and all the beavers come out. So these are old school style Native American
Simple. Now today there's feathers everywhere. And one story is, you'll notice there's no beadwork on the feet. My mom said there was always a lady who did beadwork for everybody else, but hers wouldn't be beaded. She didn't have time to bead it all along. As an artist, there's no painting hanging on my wall. Free look.
After she graduated in 1934, she moved back to Browning. That's where she met my grandpa. Well, her and my grandpa aren't getting each other, but that's when they got married and had children. In 1964, there was a flood in Burge Creek, and it wiped out their house. So they had to move, and they moved to boarding school in Browning, which is on just on the other side of Browning. So they moved about 30 miles, and they became matrons of the boarding school there. And while they were there, my grandpa Dan became Boy Scout leader, and my grandma Gertie became a Girl Scout leader. And when she became a Girl Scout leader, they needed an activity, you know, you got to earn your little badges and stuff. So she wrote to high school, and they sent her back her marionette, along with some kits of other marionettes. And her and the Girl Scouts then put them together. And there was also a buffalo, a horse, and a grizzly bear, which throughout time have fell apart and are put away. Like that one's made in 1932. These ones are rest were all made in 1964-ish.
Well, actually, they just sent her parts and she put them back together. There was no more.
And they all have also real Native American hair.
Actually, the hair was, when they cut the girls' hair at the boarding school, my mom would save it. And that's what we did.
And then soon after that, they began going around and doing shows, marionette shows like the one we'll perform later on today, or in a few minutes actually. And they would go around from school to school, like, you know, when you have your assemblies, you know, people come show you the snakes or come ride your bikes and stuff. Well, that's what my grandma and grandpa would do. They would travel and they would put on shows and demonstrate different styles of dance. And my grandpa would tell history, tell stories, like my father does.
You know, one thing I want to tell you, it's always important to us to talk about our parents. My parents were Dan and Gertie Crawford. And one time my dad had to go to the hospital. Actually, he got an appointment. It was supposed to be for his grandson, whose name is also Dan Crawford. And so he went to the hospital, but he was hard of hearing, so my mom went with him. And the doctor told him, Dan, we need a urine sample, a semen sample, and a stool sample. My dad said, huh? And my mom said, I think he wants a pair of your shorts. It's always important to talk about it. Well, he did say earlier that, like, we all think we have obstacles. Oh, my parents' house burnt down twice. Third time was wiped out by a flood. It didn't even matter. I mean, just think how tough it was back then. And how he had to build his house himself. I just really have a lot of respect for him. Another story is one time I was 16 years old and I had to go in front of the American Legion to go to Allstate. And I thought my dad was just this dumb old Indian. Because I was 16, I knew everything. And I went there, and here's the president of all the American Legions of Montana. And they're all arguing. And the guy's beating on the gavel, and he's trying to get order. They said, well, what do you think, Dan? Oh, my dad stood up. Everybody got quiet. As he started talking, everybody started nodding their head. Oh, this is the same guy that didn't know nothing earlier. Then when I was in the Army, the American Legion had a 100th anniversary. And they, out of all the armies, they picked Fort Carson. That's where I was. Out of all the battalions, they picked ours. Out of all the companies, they picked ours. Out of that company, they picked the 40 sharpest guys, haircuts, shiny shoes. I was one of them. I was so full of myself. My dad came down, he